Welcome to the Think Factory podcast. We got one question for you. What keeps you up at night?
Welcome back to the Think Factory podcast. I'm Chris Santomassimo from OGC Solutions, and we power the Think Factory podcast. And I'm actually on site today. I'm excited to be at Grafika Print in Sinking Spring, Pennsylvania, with really the third and the fourth generation of the company. So I'm with Bernie Elzer, the president and CEO, and Nathan Elzer, who's the integration specialist here at the company. So welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for coming in and seeing us.
Oh, it's fantastic. I wish people that listen to the podcast could really come and see a facility like yours. I mean, as soon as I walked in, I told you it looked like we could eat off the floor. It's that kind of facility, and you're all about efficiency, process, attitude in a good way, brand. I mean, all of those things, and it's really evident from your facility for sure.
Well, thanks. That's the ultimate compliment of what we're trying to achieve here. I've been doing this my whole life. We're 60 years right now in business, 3 generations as president. Now Nathan is on board as our 4th generation. And it's really been part of even my grandfather and my father. I don't know if it's the German heritage, but they've always been very clean and organized in how they performed or produced, regardless of the size. You know, the company was started with $500 on a ping pong table in the basement, and moved out of that and moved into many different facilities in my childhood. And that's just a core trait of good manufacturing practices, keeping a clean and safe work environment for your employees, one that's motivating to come to work to. But it's also very important when our customers come here and they go on plant tours and have the experience like you had, that we're different than most printing companies. And I want them to feel it and see it. Not everything comes down to the quoted price. Sometimes the difference is in who you are.
Well, I tell you what, you're in a print facility, but it doesn't even smell like a print facility, if you know what I mean. You know, it's that precise in terms of the appearance and the way it's structured. And I mean, as I told you, you guys light up when you're on the floor, just about how excited you are about what you do for customers every day. Maybe that's a good segue into just introducing the company a little bit and talk about those generational changes and how you got to be where you are today.
Yeah, I'm very grateful and thankful that I've had the opportunity to work with my grandfather and my father and have them pass the torch on to me, so to speak. Even though I had to buy the business from my dad, it wasn't passed on. I had to buy it, and I'm still paying those bills. But it's an honor to be, the next generation. And we have all adapted to the era that we were presidents. There's not one secret formula for this other than taking the variables that are in front of you at the time, whether it's economy or whether it's technology, whatever it is, and figuring a way out to outpace the competition and be a good supplier to your customers. So it started on a ping pong table. Really what the first evolution that really caused the growth was the need for a customer of ours in the area that needed a battery label that could resist car battery acid back in the 60s. And my grandfather and dad took on that challenge. They were a screen printer at the time, printing signs for store windows. But they came up with a screen printed label that was printed on a clear material in reverse behind the material, and then laminated an adhesive layer, sandwiching the printing between the clear substrate and the adhesive layer. And that patent made them the number 1 producer of battery labels. And that catapulted the growth. They couldn't really afford to pay for all the growth, so they wound up selling the business to VF Corporation, fast forwarding in 1978. And during those years, we had a lot of growth, being owned by a Fortune 500 company. Those were my teenage years, and a lot of technology was interjected during those years as they acquired apparel companies, meaning VF Corporation. Their print facilities, the Wrangler print facility, was brought into Grafika. The Lee Jeans print facility was brought into Grafika, and that's where we picked up flexo and offset printing and rotary letterpress. And those four print mediums combined, with our screen printing at the time, that diversity served us very well. And today we still have four print mediums, which is, I think, an important part of who we were and who we are. In 1990, my dad had the opportunity to buy the company back from VF Corporation and build the building we're in today in Sinking Spring.
Which is an impressive facility, by the way.
Thank you. He built a 125,000 square foot facility on this property, and we've tried to optimize that footprint as much as possible with those four print mediums and finishing and pre-press. Over the years, we've printed almost anything you can think of, on ping pong tables, to wall decals, to all commercial products, packaging products. And my dad was a big believer in his generation and his era of ownership to being very diverse. So I grew up managing a print floor with 22 different kinds of printing presses and all the finishing equipment you can imagine. And it was quite a task. But in the 2000s, the industry changed and the volumes weren't what they were. And he felt
a lot of printers hurt during that time period, and especially in the middle of the 2000s into the end.
Yeah, Grafika was no different. We were challenged in 1999, 2000 era. They did $30 million with 248 employees. And by the time I bought the company in 2010, we were doing 18 million with about 85 employees. And I took it down to 16 million and 80 employees and started to rebuild the company. And while my dad was diverse, I kind of kept that mantra, but I wanted to standardize that diversity, to enter the company into a period of industrialized print manufacturing. And that led me to the packaging industry, the folding carton industry, as well as the prime label industry in our flexo department. We still have a little bit of screen printing as an accent printing, but it's not a core print generator, and we do have digital web printing today. But the focus is high volume, industrialized products, both in folding carton and labels, that are of high quality, very high consistency in not only the print aspect, but the performance of our products in the filling lines of our customers is very, very important. We are very, and have always been, customer focused. It's our cornerstone. We adapt based on what our customers' needs are. And I think that's why after 60 years, we're still here. It's all about customers and our employees and how we are motivated to serve what our customer requirements are.
Well, you made a major pivot too, right? And niche down into the packaging segment. But the only way I think in today's environment that you successfully do that type of a transformation is with folks like Nathan that have got the technology side and can really, bring to bear some of the most current automation techniques, technology, et cetera, to really increase your productivity.
I'm very thankful that he's on board at this moment in time. There's definitely a challenge in our industry going from the traditional craftsman print manufacturing model to a highly efficient industrialized print model. And some of my generation has trouble integrating with the technologies that are being manufactured today. And our industry's challenged with bringing in talented, experienced people. We really have to take it on our own to train our employees. And that's where Nathan and his generation are so important. They look at technology totally different. They integrate with it in ways that it's intuitive to them at this point, where my generation is intimidated by it. We've come up with some phrases in regard to technology and his generation versus mine. And his job is to help not only understand how the technology is to be applied to the process, but how the culture is to be adapted around it as well.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there in terms of the availability of technology, but it's really just to your point, Bernie, it's really just starting to come into the print floor, right? You look like you're, from what I saw downstairs, it looks like you're really at the forefront of some of that automation.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, it kind of, I wouldn't call it an issue, but it's something that we see. It seems like it's across many different industries with a lot of this newer technology and automation. There's so many variables and so much, the code for these machines is so complex that a lot of the time they are developed and put into the field before that software is really fine-tuned enough to get all the bugs out of it. And they will rely on the customers to really tell them what the bugs are, because that's the quickest way to really figure out what's going on. You could never sit on the planning floor for one of these machines and iron out every possible error or glitch in the code that you might think will come up. Someone will always find something that is not going to be there. So that definitely is also part of the challenge, because you have to almost put yourself in a mindset where that's what you need to work through in the onboarding of one of these newer pieces of technology. And for me, I think, I've been involved in technology my whole life, and probably to a little bit higher extent than most people. I've been into drones and, all the, newest random things you could think of. So I've dealt with my fair share of frustrations with getting to know something new or a different operating system or how to troubleshoot. And it seems to be pretty consistent across whatever you really get in touch with. It's just when you get to this level of manufacturing where it's the real deal, it's not a toy. I think a structured and an approach to these problems with structure and a little bit more patience is what you need to really get to the bottom of it. And it's not going to be a couple months. It's going to be a multi-year thing. And same thing with that is you want to bring several people along with that development, so you have expertise in these areas that largely you're not going to get people that, well, I guess you could if you're lucky, but you're not going to get people that know how to run every single one of these things. And They might all have different operating systems and different types of sensors. And it's just a growing, complex world, but there's definitely ways to understand it and integrate it in a structured way. It's just very complex, I guess.
Well, you made a great point when we were walking around the floor that your knowledge of the print business was really key in terms of your being able to integrate, some of these concepts into your production environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been around the shop my entire life, and as I was in college coming back some summers, I got a little bit more of a look into the complexities of the business, all the way from the finances to pre-press and everything that's not really involved in the manufacturing, but still is involved. Luckily, I think out of college, I made it a point that I wanted to go work elsewhere before I came back to the business to try to get some other experience and work under somebody that wasn't my dad or somewhere that felt, as comfortable as Grafika does for me. But upon doing that, I got to see some pretty neat facilities with my last job. We did a lot of technology automation for distribution centers, and we also had a hospital division. So it was interesting to see, that side of things, just not in a printing lens. And I use this example a lot when describing, our automation and the ideas we have behind it and where we want it to go. Is I lived in Dallas for a year, and I got to go to the Peterbilt manufacturing facility there in Denton, Texas. And that was a entirely automated facility, AGVs, ASRS systems for the whole cabs, robotic arms, the whole deal. Even the tools were tied into a TV on the wall with, torque specs and everything. So it was extremely high level. Their line never stopped. And in that same approach, that's how I look here. I've seen an extremely high level of automation with obviously a ton of people and planning and specialists went into planning these facilities, but that just makes me feel like, with printing, it is a relatively simple process from start to finish. You're not putting in multiple components. There's not any type of industrial assembly. It's, the machines are handling everything. And like what we talked about earlier, soon we'll get to a point where no one's even touching the material. But it put it in perspective to me, his vision, he's years farther out than I am, but anything that we want to do is possible in the realm of automation, but we just have to set ourselves up to be able to take it on easily. And if you don't, that's where you can really get yourself in a pinch, I think.
You can't get behind, I guess, right?
No.
You can't get behind the market and the technology and be competitive, but at the same time, these are great segues, and we wish we had planned this. This is really just a sort of a free flow conversation, but I was really impressed not only by the passion that I saw from you both on the floor, but also the passion about driving out costs, driving inefficiency into the process wherever you could. Automation sounds great to a lot of people, but there's to the point, Bernie, you made a couple of times as we walked around the factory. There's so many other aspects of efficiency and how quickly maintaining quality, of course, but how quickly can you put product through the printers, and despite all your work, you still got more to do, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's a sickness with me. I mean, I love this stuff, but I think much further down the process than most people. So it's easy to say, oh, we need a new printing press, and we're going to produce 60 million impressions on this printing press per year in a 3-shift operation, 5 days a week. And then you start saying, well, we have another printing press, we're doing 40 million impressions a year, so 100 million impressions. Well, that's 50,000 pallets of material that need to be received. They need to be transformed for pallets to go through the printing presses, and then they're picked up and moved throughout the plant. Each time you pick these 50,000 pallets up till they are dropped off and put back on a truck, it's 11 times they're picked up and moved at 2 or 3 minutes per time every time they're picked up. And it's millions and millions of minutes of cost that's not directly related to the printed product itself. And it's these costs that a lot of people don't look at. So when I buy a piece of equipment, it's bought with automation that we might not even get to for 2 or 3 years, but it's there and it's ready to go. And that's kind of what you saw today. We're not 100% where I want to be, but you saw glimpses and pieces of different pieces of automation, and that's the beauty about it, is you can add it at a rate that fits your financial requirements or your growth curve. In raw numbers, I mentioned earlier, I took the company down to 16 million and 80 people. Today we're over 40 million with 125 people. This facility in the parking lot and the bathrooms, everything can really only cover 125 people. Our growth is going to take us to 60 and 70 million with about 125 to 135 people. And a lot of the jobs of people moving product through the plant will be replaced with robotics, and those people will go into more skilled labor on the back shifts of the printing presses and the die cutters and the gluers. So instead of having people employed moving product, we will grow the business, we will use automation and robotics, and those people will be skilled up to facilitate the impression count we need to process through to pay for all the automation. So that's kind of the vision and the sickness at the same time that I have.
What do they say? There's a fine line between genius and lunatic, right? So I totally get it. No, but it's the kind of calculation you should be doing as a responsible president and CEO, which was, how can I get more from what I have now? I also like the message, you said it again a moment ago, but you said it before when we spoke, in that, you're not afraid to invest in your people from the first day they join the company. You're not expecting necessarily somebody to come from the outside ready to rock and roll, but rather you'll train them the way you want them to operate and fit in your team. And then now you're talking about even elevating them further, so they're going to make more money, they're going to have more opportunities. So it's a great message.
Yeah, our industry is not going to be able to provide skilled labor for everyone. We have to take that on ourselves. Our culture is different. They need to be trained in the family values, the Grafika core values that are important to us, that we build on, and that takes time. The industry is transferring from the craftsman to what I've coined the phrase as the print technologists of the future. It's this younger generation that is intuitively interacting with the technologies on our presses. For example, our Kerning and Bauer press, which is our newest machine, several technologies that operators can utilize that helps bridge the gap of what a craftsman took years to have to learn through all the jobs he processed. Today, we have lower level artificial intelligence monitoring color for us at levels of 20,000 sheets per hour in ways that the craftsmen of the 70s and 80s could never dream of. So the problem with my older craftsmen is sometimes they get stressed with the technology. We grew up in an era of turning knobs and switches and dials, and now it's all touch screens and artificial intelligence controlling things for us, and we don't necessarily trust it like the younger generation does. And it's my responsibility as an owner to be the bridge between the two generations. And that's where Nathan plays such an important role. It's not just integrating technology, but it's also integrating culture along with it. So we're in a place down the line where we're not trapped in a place where we can't function. We have to find ways to educate this newer generation who is comfortable with the technology, so we can perform at levels that it's very difficult for our competition to keep up with.
Right. But you're also sort of lifting up the existing people at the same time.
Absolutely.
And bringing them along. Maybe there's a longer adoption period or a longer get comfortable period with technology, but they're coming along, right?
Absolutely. Eventually we get there, right? So I use this example, put one of my operators in a car with his grandchild and say, let's have a race to see who can pair their phone more intuitively with the car. And inevitably the kid's already listening to music while, my operators are, swearing at the car. They're intuitively adaptive, but eventually we get there. My generation gets there. It just takes us longer to trust it. And that's where the training and process control and everything that we put into it really plays an important role to bridge the gap between the two generations. I'm not trying to exclude either one. We're trying to pull them together, that they learn from each other in ways that makes the company more competitive.
Yeah. Well, on that note, you talked a lot about reinvestment in the company, both in technology and equipment, being smart about where those investments are. Where do you see the company progressing in, the next year to 2 years, maybe beyond? I hear more efficiency, I hear more volume on an existing set of equipment plus new technology. But give us a sense for where you see things going.
Well, our goal here is to continue to grow in both volume and in technology, particularly in the automation side between the operations. So that 50,000 pallets that need to move through the plant system of conveyors and AGVs that allow us to move the product through the plant and use the people in more skilled labor side of things. So we will grow, probably replace one of our 40-inch presses with a 145, so a large format carton press will be downstairs along with the die cutting to go with it, which will also add probably 2 more gluers. So a lot of capital investment. On the flexo side, we're looking already at another flexo press, probably 8 units or more. So it's just continually reinvesting and updating the technology, which is it's a heavy burden financially. We fuel this through cash flow. I'm not bringing on investors or private equity. We try to do this at the rate of our growth with our customers. So it all comes back to listening to our customers and responding to their needs so we can secure a relationship and continue to grow with them while we expand deeper and deeper into the market.
Right.
Our partnerships with our suppliers are paramount, as not only on the equipment side, but the raw material side. The performance of our products in the marketplace are very, very important, and the material plays a key role in that. So we'll be busy. I think that's enough for the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, sounds
but we
like
want to optimize the footprint of this building. After that, we'll see what happens. We might have to think bigger.
Yeah, for sure. No, but it's great to be so data-driven, because each of your decisions, whether it's to invest or not to invest or where to invest, it's all based on experience and, forecasting that's actually got a foundation, as opposed to forecasting that's throwing a dart to a board on the wall.
I think the move, into the industrialized mindset gives us the ability to look at a data pool of reliable information. When we were printing everything and anything, it was very difficult to bring the data to a consensus. But now it's about output. It's sheets per hour, per day, per week. It's about tonnage produced per work man hour. And when you look at those analytics, you're able to make pretty solid decisions on where you are and where you want to go.
Well, if the activity I saw in your facility is any indication, you're in a pretty good trajectory. So congratulations on building a pretty solid place.
Well, thank you. It's a great industry. I've never been more optimistic than the print industry right now. Certainly, we've as an industry have taken our hits, but there's a lot of opportunity out there for progressive print companies. I went to RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology, which in the 80s was arguably the #1 print management school in the world. And years later, I went back and it wasn't the same. And there was a professor that I spoke with that just thought that print was dead. It was all digital. Digital was going to be everything, and the internet was going to take over the world. And I believe part of that we've experienced in the consolidation of our industry, for sure. The commercial print markets, as we know, are not what they used to be. It's still there, but it's not what it used to be.
Yeah.
Packaging and labels has been fantastic, and there's so much more growth opportunity. There's a big move from plastics printing and packaging moving back to board because it's the sustainability issues of our environment.
Right.
So there's great growth opportunity in our industry, and we plan on being there and being part of that growth. We do not look at this industry in a downturn. We look at it as we are moving forward with great opportunity.
I think you're absolutely right. That's a great way to sort of put a ribbon on this conversation, and that it's people think about print dying because maybe people don't read as many newspapers anymore, but to take that view, I think, is to be looking at the industry way too narrowly, because to your point, so many other interesting things to be done, whether you're an owner like yourself, or somebody coming up into the business as an engineer, or even a technologist. I mean, there's so many opportunities to do great things. And you can't digitize a frozen hamburger package, can you? Right? So, among other things, if you're going to buy food in a container, it's got to get printed somewhere, among lots of other things. So, I think when you made your choices about where to focus, some pretty smart choices and a great approach.
Yeah, it has been a blessing to have had the ability to move our business in a different direction into the packaging world. And it's amazing how our industry is just not recognized. When COVID went down, the industries were shut down as being essential or non-essential, and printing was on the non-essential list out of the gate. And in a very short amount of time, that all changed. Mm-hmm. Because people, they just don't see printing as an essential or part of their lives. Even my closest friends, when I talk about my company, and you do business cards, or you do letterheads, or wedding invitations, because that's really their only personal interaction with maybe purchasing printing. Yet they go to the grocery store, they go to the CVS, everything in that store is in a bottle and a box, and no one thinks of it as the printing industry. Sure. And that's what's so sad, and I think part of the reason it's so hard to attract young people into our industry. They just don't make the connection with how vital and exciting this industry can be and is to our society.
At the end of the day, it's manufacturing. You're manufacturing things on some sort of media, right? The unfortunate part, I guess, in packaging for people's connection is that it's the first thing that you toss after you take the food out or take the product out of the box, right? So, but hopefully some of these podcasts will hit a couple of kids that realize that there's a lot of cool stuff going on, and print is not dead, for sure. Certainly not in Sinking Spring, Pennsylvania, anyway. So I really thank you guys for the opportunity to see all the cool things you're doing and experience some of the passion too.
Well, thanks for coming in, and come back in 2 years, because we're always changing and evolving. So you'll see something different, I'm sure.
No dust settling downstairs. That's for sure. So just to round out our conversation today, this is Bernie Elzer and Nathan Elzer from Grafika Print in Pennsylvania. Tell the listeners where you can get some more information about the company and do some business.
Well, our website is grafikaprint.com, and you can find my son on LinkedIn.
That's true.
I'm the connection there, apparently. So.
Excellent. That's very cool. And for in case you didn't catch the headline, it's Grafika is spelled Grafika. So thank you so much, guys, for introducing everybody to the company, and we appreciate your time today. It was great.
Well, thank you.
My pleasure.
Glad it works out.
I did too. So just signing off, Chris Santomassimo from OGC Solutions that powers the Think Factory podcast, and we'll see you next time.